All right. It looks like the trickle is starting to slow down. So we're going to go ahead and get started. We want to use every single minute that we can for this great programming today. Good afternoon. Thank you all for joining us today. This is our second event in the Georgetown Rockefeller Pivot with Purpose Job Search Seminar Series. I am Laura Sheehan. I'm the Associate Director for Graduate Coaching here at Georgetown University's Walsh School of Foreign Service. I am honored to have the privilege of introducing our speaker for today and helping to moderate the Q&A. So earlier this week on Tuesday, we heard from Jenny Blake, who is now popping up on the screen, about defining your next career target and outlining next steps in a career pivot. Jenny highlighted some of the amazing strategies outlined in her award-winning book, Pivot, The Only Move That Matters Is Your Next One. Today, Jenny is joining us again to talk through how to best structure your time and overall approach to a period of transition. And for those of you who are joining us for the first time today, I'm going to tell you a little bit about our speaker, the visionary author and strategist, Jenny Blake. Jenny is an award-winning author, international keynote speaker, podcaster, and career strategist based in New York City. A former career development manager at Google, Jenny co-created the Google Career Guru coaching program. I'm glad I said it well that time. She has authored 3 books: Life After College, which was 2011, Pivot, the book I just mentioned, published in 2016, which also won the Axiom Best Business Book Award, and Free Time, Lose the Busy Work, Love Your Business, published most recently in 2022. Jenny is also the voice behind 2 popular podcasts, Pivot with Purpose, or Pivot with Jenny Blake, and Free Time, which together have earned over 2 million downloads. Her work centers on helping individuals and organizations navigate change, especially during career pivots, with clarity, confidence, and creativity. She champions the message that meaningful career transformation can be intentional, supported, and profound. And that is exactly why Jenny Blake is our speaker for these first 2 of our 14-part series. Please join me in welcoming Jenny Blake to share her insights today on how to stay focused and energized during your pivot. Jenny, over to you.
Thank you so much, Laura, and huge thanks to all of you for joining today. There are so many things you could do with your time, and to be here and part of this early kickoff for the Pivot with Purpose series, it's really an honor to be here with you. When Laura and I were talking about this second session, and I mentioned Free Time, my third book, we talked about how you may have free time that you didn't ask for. And now the question is, what do we do with it? And how can you make the most of this time? Because even though in so many ways you've gotten pivoted by circumstance rather than by choice, it's not the luxury of planning a pivot while you've still got a salary and a job and things are okay. This is now a situation where you might feel a lot of pressure, and specifically time pressure and financial pressure and all the pressures that come with career change. Because as I mentioned on Tuesday, sometimes the career change can be terrifying because it seems to threaten our most fundamental needs on Maslow's hierarchy: food, clothing, and shelter. So I'm really delighted to be here today, and I want to echo the kickoff with Dr. Shah and the Georgetown team and on Tuesday to really start also by saying thank you so much. Thank you all for your service, for the careers that you've led up till this point. You are all pivot pros. Free time is about doing more with less, and that's been a theme now for the last several years. You've already been doing a lot of this, and my hope today, this is going to be really interactive, and we're going to leave even more time open for questions, is that you get some tools and some permission slips to stop doing the work that drains you, or the approaches to figuring out what's next that are draining your energy, and really finding ways to tune into your unique rhythm and how you can generate energy, not just for you, but even for those around you. Let me just start my slides. All right. I mentioned, we all have so many pivot stories. On Tuesday, I mentioned how the pandemic affected me as a small business owner, that in those first 2 weeks of March, when everything started shutting down, I lost 80% of my projected income, not just for the remainder of 2020, but Speaking events like this that used to be in person were canceled years into the future. And I also described how at first I felt really kind of energized. Okay, pivot, book on pivot. I've got this. I doubled down. I podcasted every day. I mentioned the phrase curiosity. It's kind of something that we all lean on in a crisis. Like, okay, maybe when the news came down in February for many of you, and sometimes some of you it was after, you have an initial surge almost of adrenaline, like, okay, I'm gonna figure this out. But now here we are a couple months in, and it's so natural to feel tired or discouraged or like still processing the grief and anxiety. I also described briefly on Tuesday, but I'll just share a little more. So for me, I started to hit that dip at the end of 2020, and I was still hanging on to my hope and my optimism. And it was in the middle of 2023 that I ended up losing one of my last big contracts. And this was a six-figure contract that represented the next 6 months of my income and many follow-on speaking gigs that used to come from. It was Google was licensing the Pivot IP. And because they had declared 2023 their year of efficiency, as so many tech companies did, I knew the writing was on the wall, but I was still trying to hold hope for the first half of 2023. Then, as the wildfires were raging in Nova Scotia, this was summer. This is a summer afternoon in Midtown Manhattan. And I remember leaving the podcast studio where I am right now recording this. I remember leaving feeling absolutely sick to my stomach. And I look out, everyone's got their masks on. It was kind of this throwback to 2020. And I felt so defeated. Like I had been holding on, staying optimistic. I wrote the book called Pivot. And yet losing this last big contract, I had a few things that still felt really wobbly, but this was easily a year's worth of salary and the hope of what would follow into the future. And so I go home, there's thunder and lightning cracking summer storms in the sky. And then that night, as I went to bed, I saw the almost now ironic message on my Dyson fan in the bedroom, which is how I felt about my business prospects looking forward. Very poor. I just had nothing left in the tank. I really felt like I don't know how to move forward from here. This was no longer, okay, yeah, you pivot, you get pivoted, you adapt. I felt like I had been trying everything and I wasn't sure where to go from here. And this is what we talked about on Tuesday, the VUCA environment, where things are volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. So even if you're not trying to start your own business, now I've been self-employed 14 years, even though sometimes I joke I'm hanging on by a pinky fingernail in this environment, even if you are trying to figure out what's next, it can be hard to hang on to your hope, your faith, your energy, and the things that light you up and the things that are going to help you pivot into your next opportunity, whatever that looks like, whether it is a full-time job, whether it's an interim pivot, whether it's a pivot portfolio. Maybe you do take this time to strike out on your own and experiment with self-employment. You never know if you can start in this environment, as I know so many of you have the skills to do, the skills, the resources, the knowledge, the network. You can do anything. In the meantime, you all know this meme. Sometimes we feel like, okay, even this week, there's always something in the news. That's the news's job, to make us feel angry and afraid. But it also feels like the world is on fire. What are we supposed to do? So today, this is a moment to check in with yourself. This is a moment to structure your time, your summer, your search for what's next in a way that is going to help, even when it feels like the world is burning. If pivot is about asking and answering the question, what's next? Free time is about understanding what's now. If you feel like you're in a little bit of limbo, that's what's now. If you want to make the most of this precious time that you have, like it can feel so weighed down by stress and pressure. And I'm the breadwinner, by the way, for my family. It's me, my husband, and our German Shepherd. Some of you who attended Tuesday saw photos of Ryder, but it's on me. It's on my shoulders. So we have a mortgage in New York City. I'm self-employed and I'm the breadwinner. Many of you may be in a similar position or where you're helping family members where not only is this a time of tremendous uncertainty, but it's compounded by the pressure you may feel to earn and provide. So, this question, what's now? I love this concept. This is a Japanese phrase, ma. It combines the symbols door and sun. Ma is the time and space life needs to breathe, to feel and connect. If we have no time, if our space is restricted, we cannot grow. This universal principle applies to every aspect of life. Although you didn't ask for this free time, whatever amounts that you have, and I know, by the way, that even when it feels like your time should be free, it doesn't always feel that way. But I also want to offer to you one small silver lining is that this is the time and space that you get to breathe. Your life gets to breathe. New insights, new awareness, new opportunities can come in that actually these times, even when they're heavy with grief and stress and pressure and anxiety, they're also very fruitful. I wrote one of my Rolling in Dough posts is called The Terroir of Transformation. I'm sure I could say that much better French accent. Terroir is the for any given wine varietal, it's what was happening in the soil at that time. What is the region that this wine is from? What was the weather pattern of the year that the wine was stored? Some of you winos are going to know all the right terms, and I'm bungling them. But you get the idea that the terroir of a wine is very unique. And I shared on Tuesday, Susan David in her book, Emotional Agility. She says, our brains are not very observant when things are going well. We're on autopilot. But when things seem to fall apart, we're highly observant, highly creative. We have all new insights, not just about the world, but about ourselves. And so that's partly what I want to offer to you and encourage you to take, to pay attention to as much as you can during this time. Is there such a thing as too much free time? Like you might have felt like, oh, I should be doing so much right now. Even people who take a sabbatical on purpose. Sometimes, let's say they're going to take a 3-month sabbatical, and that's well and good. You feel a little comfortable. Okay, I do have something to go back to. However, sometimes the first month is almost recovering from burnout. Like so many of us, despite our best efforts, it's very intense. And I know the jobs all of you had are very intense. So sometimes there's a period of decompression. You're not doing anything. I remember when I left Google, I had been there 5.5 years. I was a lump for the first month. I just sat on the couch. I would start watching TV at 7 a.m., which is really unlike me, but I couldn't do anything else. And I was so worried. Am I gonna be like this forever? Am I just at my core, you know, lazy? Which one of my favorite recent books that I've read, there's no such thing as laziness. I'll get the exact title and I'll put it in the resources that we send after this. But there's no such thing. Sometimes your body will tell you what it needs. You might feel like, okay, I should be, if you want a full-time job, you might feel like I should be searching all day, every day, 9 to 5. And you have kind of time scarcity, but you don't feel like you have enough time, but it's also the way you're spending it isn't sparking very much joy. And then there is a sweet spot. If we have too little free time, we feel stressed. And you probably know that already. That's like more common pattern, especially when you're early, mid career, you're not retired. Most of us feel a sense of time scarcity or even time confetti, where our time is broken up into all these little pieces and you don't feel like you have a grasp on it. However, after about 5 hours of discretionary hours in the day, it's also stressful. You feel like you're floating. You feel kind of anxious. Like for all of you, as we shared on Tuesday, I consider you high net growth and high net impact. You want to know that you're learning and growing and making an impact. You don't want to sit on the couch all day eating Ben and Jerry's. Those are for the down days. Those are when you're recovering and resting and recharging or however you like to recharge. But there is such a thing that when you don't have structure to your time or you're structuring it according to an old pattern, that also creates stress. And this, by the way, is from Cassie Holmes' book, Happier Hour. What I want to offer to you today is a chance to rewire your time blueprint. Just like you're raised in a certain context with your family and how they think about money, for example. Did you have a lot of it growing up? Did you have not enough? Were your parents fighting about money? What were each of your parents, if or adults in your life, how did they think about money? Were they spending it, as soon as something comes in, it goes back out? Were they saving it, hoarding it? Were they very frugal? Were they very thoughtful? We all have money stories from growing up that we have to kind of examine as adults. I love the book Happy Money for rewiring some of the money talk, and Tosha Silver, It's Not Your Money. But we also have a time blueprint. So I didn't realize when I worked at Google, I remember I would just have a brick wall of meetings, Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, meetings, meetings, meetings. I would travel on the elevator with my laptop in the crook of my arm, typing while I'm in the elevator, probably drinking a latte with the other hand. I just, that was work. And that's the factory system that most of us are used to working in. But who does the factory system work for? Is it designed for human thriving? Absolutely not. Working 9 to 5 or 8 to 6 or 7 to 7, who does that benefit? It benefits the owner of the company or the leader of the organization. Of course, maybe if all of that work is like super high impact, you can do it for a stretch of time. But in general, this time blueprint of Monday through Friday, you know, pick your hours, it doesn't necessarily lead to thriving. And so I got really curious because once I went out on my own 14 years ago, I was still creating this brick wall of meetings for myself. I felt like I call it the riptide of reactive work. I was still always in meetings, calls, emails, inboxes. I was reacting, reacting, reacting all day. Why? And it wasn't until I started working on free time a couple years ago that I realized, okay, my mom worked full time since I was 3 months old, and we lived primarily with her. My parents got divorced when I was 5. So from 5 years old on, but my mom went back to work when I was 3 months old. So we had babysitters. And then when we were living with her as a single parent, she would put me in all these after school activities because that was the best childcare. So I would go to school and then I would take the bus by myself on Muni in San Francisco. Now I'm like, Mom, how'd you let me do that? But I would go to the community center and then I would take jazz, tap, ballet, piano, gymnastics, whatever, some combination. I would do homework in between. And then my mom would pick me up at 6 or 6:30. That was my time blueprint since I was a child. So it's no wonder that in middle school and high school, I created all these side projects. I joined clubs. I, of course, was doing all the shoulds, like what you should do to get into the right school, pick the right major, have the right internships. But even when I had time autonomy, I recreated the pattern because it was all I had ever known. So this takes time, which you have a little more of at least, but there is an opportunity to question everything. If you're job searching, do I need to do that every day for 5 hours? No. Could you do a really powerful, burst? I love Brian Tracy's concept, eat that frog from a Mark Twain quote. Could you eat one frog in the morning and then feel good the rest of your day? Like, how can you rewire your time blueprint so you are not stuck in an old factory-based system? Even if you may end up going back into full-time work, this is a really interesting time where you get to question how long things really take. And is it okay to go work out in the middle of the day? I still, to this day, I'll share a little more of my story, but I still feel guilty. But who cares? Says who? Who is monitoring? How can you restructure? And we're going to get into some reflection exercises in a moment in a way that helps you thrive so that everybody around you can thrive. I love the way my friend Chris Gillibo puts it in his new book, Time Anxiety. When you're drowning, you can't just swim faster. And sometimes you're drowning from a lot of work on your plate or a lot of responsibilities at home. Sometimes you're drowning in anxiety. It's more amorphous, the sense that of overwhelm. And I know it so well from these last 5 years. You've already been dealing with a lot of these issues and questions right when the pandemic hit, right when we all got the work from home order. Or if you were even able to do that, if you have small kids that were in school. So you've already been having to adapt time-wise. But what I love about this is that Of course, not the drowning part or even treading water, but it's not about swimming faster. It's about doing something completely differently. It's about rethinking our relationship to time altogether. So, in order to do that, the primary diagnostic that I use is really starting to ask the question and inquire, where are you in friction? Where are you in flow? And this builds on what we did, the work we did on Tuesday in the pivot session, specifically the plant stage, which accelerates your search for what's next. The more time you spend in the plant stage, the more time you spend understanding this, where are you in friction, where are you in flow, the quicker the answers will come. Friction, you know what that feels like. You're dreading the day, the work, you're procrastinating, and it drains you. You feel dread, all the D words. Flow is what Mihai Csikszentmihalyi describes as near ecstatic bliss, where time is passing and you don't even realize it. You are just lost, immersed. The sun can rise and set, and you haven't barely even looked up. That's a flow state. And research from McKinsey shows that we are 5 times more productive when we're in a flow state than when we're not. So it's not just a nice to have to, oh, let's all feel good while we're working. No, it's actually the way you get more done. And even if you're batching a bunch of annoying admin work, you could still get into a flow state with that. You could go, okay, I'm setting a timer, 45 minutes, putting in my headphones, bam, 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 bam. You can still create flow. It's not about only doing the things we like, but it's about how do we set up the work so that we move from friction to flow. Part of how I do that, I've had this mantra since I first heard it, maybe 15, 20 years ago from Agile development. Each time you repeat a task, take one step toward automating it. And the way I like to say it is, what steps can you take now to free time far into the future? This whole idea of free time, it's not about being more efficient. It's not about trying to squeeze more and making you even more stressed, like squeeze more juice from the lemon. It's actually about, what could you do now so you don't even have to think about it again? So, one small example, if you have something that your household uses, like paper towels or dog food, it doesn't matter what it is, put it on subscription. That's something where you set it once and then you don't have to think about it. You don't have to remember the next time. It's on a subscription now. And I know we all have subscription fatigue, so there is that. But it's just one small example of what can you start to take off of your plate by, if you're going to have to repeat it again, you automate it. So something so simple. I use Text Expander on my computer. Um, I have little keyboard shortcuts for everything from my email address to my phone number to a whole lengthy message. So you might have guests coming to your house. Okay, great. Instead of always explaining how to get to your place, can you save a little canned response email or something in Text Expander, or even create a Google Doc like you would for an Airbnb? Here's everything you need to know so that you don't have to repeat yourself with the next guest and the next one after that. Part of moving from friction to flow. So, this is the free time framework, and that's what we're going to talk about today. And this is where I'm going to walk you through some exercises. We can't go through everything that's in the free time framework, but the 3 core stages, the 3 parts of the process for any time, any area you want to move from friction to flow is align, design, assign. It's just 3 steps. So, the first one, align. This is about aligning the work or your search. If you're in the, like, your main focus right now is job search, aligning it with your values, your energy, and your strengths. We talked a little bit about energy strengths, but this is, I don't know about you. I know for me, if I do work that's not aligned, that I know and my intuition is not right for me, I don't even do it well. It No good comes of it. Think of it like you say yes to a party you don't want to go to. Now, maybe some of you can show up and like be your best, most magnanimous self, but I know sometimes when I drag myself to something, I don't even end up having fun, or I don't show up the way I would have wanted to. It would have actually been better if I had stayed home. So, this is about aligning your search and your process and your day with your values, your energy, and your strengths. So, one way to do that, one energy leak, is compare and despair. And it's so, when you feel down, when you feel insecure, when you feel unsure, it's so easy to look at what others are doing and feel bad. I mean, I stopped social media 10 years ago because every time I would close an app like Instagram, I felt covetous. Like, oh, I want what she's wearing. I want what her apartment looks like. Oh, I would go down the despair rabbit hole. Why don't I? Oh, I should be doing all these things in my career. Oh, this person wrote a book just like Pivot, but she's a Harvard professor and she funds startup companies and Broadway shows. Like, what am I doing with my life? And like, I couldn't, maybe I could go to therapy twice a week for who knows how long, or I could just shut the app and just not scroll the home feed. So for me, I use this phrase, eyes on your own paper, especially during this time. No good will really come from comparing. Of course, you could use those signals of like, what is it highlighting that you might want or who you want to become, and that's fair. It's also okay to just remind yourself, eyes on your own paper, so that you don't have those energy leaks, especially during a really sensitive time. So as we think about the other part of eyes on your own paper is we all have different personalities. We have different energy at any given time in our life. So right now, I just want you to take a quick inventory. I'm going to set the timer for 2 minutes and I'll tell you when to switch because we're going to do 1 minute on what drains you. And I want you to just take an inventory. If you have a pen and paper, grab it now. It's actually works a different part of your brain than typing, but typing will do. Take an inventory right now at this moment. What is draining you personally or professionally? Where are your energy leaks? And try not to lift your pen from the page. Don't stop writing because the things, when you think you're done, that just means you got your most obvious ideas out. Now, this can be in your last job, the aspects that drained you the most. It could be the job search. What aspects of it are draining you? It could be household responsibilities. Sometimes the career stuff is the fun part, and the household admin, adulting is draining. Get it all down. I'm giving you a bonus 30 seconds. And you can I encourage you to keep adding to this list over the next 2 weeks, by the way. So this is just the initial starting point. All right, take another minute now or a minute and a half and write down as much as you can about what energizes you personally and professionally. What in your last role did you most enjoy? What lit you up? What put you in a flow state? What fuels your energy tank? When do you feel that you are at your best? What do you most look forward to? Who are some of the people that energize you the most? You always feel uplifted or energized after you interact with them. What do you daydream about? What types of movement energize you? All right, that's time. Like I said, I want you to keep this list handy because so many things are going to arise over the next 2 weeks. You can't really know in the moment. You just go about your day. Aha, that's a drainer. Write it down. Aha, that's an energizer. Write it down. Keep going with this. Keep this near you because when you take that inventory and get it out of your head and onto the page, there's so much problem solving that you can do with it. But when it's just abstract, the stress just kind of compounds in this abstract, amorphous way. The second principle in the align stage that I want to highlight is give yourself golden hour. So if you've dabbled with photography, or maybe you're just a movie aficionado, movies like Lord of the Rings are shot almost entirely in golden hour. That's when the quality of light is magical, this orangish soft glow right before the sun rises and right before it fully sets. So if you've ever taken a photo midday where the sun is directly overhead and all the shadows and angles are wrong, it's just horrible. But at golden hour, everybody looks magical and ethereal. You see this a lot, of course, in rom-coms, but you can tell. You're like, oh, they got up early to shoot that scene because it's golden hour, or they stayed late. We sometimes make the mistake of giving our golden hour in any given day to other people. So if you are someone who the first thing you do when you wake up is you check social media, or you check your text messages, or you check your emails, or you do that at night. I find for me, I can't check email after 4 p.m. because I get intense anxiety if I know something's there that I I don't have a chance to get to yet, or that I would have gotten to tomorrow anyway. After 4, I'm starting my wind down. I might sometimes I'm working, sometimes I'm not. We'll talk about that in a minute. Same thing the next morning. If you love waking up and scrolling a home feed and infinite scroll, you know, don't let me stop you. But otherwise, think about, when are you at your creative and strategic best in any given day? Some of you are morning. Now it's, oh my gosh, I just forgot the phrase, night owl. And then there's the one like morning lark or something. And then there's one circadian rhythm that is best in the afternoon. Some of you are morning people, morning larks. Some of you might be night owls. Your golden hour is unique to you, but I want you to give it to yourself. So in any given day, how could you slot the work that is most meaningful, most important, and most energizing for your golden hour? And then you fit the rest around it. So take just a minute, and if you could rethink how you approach your day, what is your best energy window? When are you freshest, smartest, most vivacious? Maybe it's 2 or 3 hours. Is it an early morning? Like, what is your best energy window of the day? And what would you slot into it? What could you slot into it? So it might be that if you're a morning person, like for me, I don't usually allow people to schedule any calls before 11 a.m. because my golden hour is 9 to 11 after I've done my ramp up in the morning. So 9 to 11, that's when I write. That's when I think. That's when I work on slides for something like this. No one gets that time unless it's a really high priority exception. And feel free to share in the chat, by the way. I forgot to mention that with the energizers and drainers. Even if I can't call out the chat right now as we go, we'll look at it together, but also you're going to give each other ideas. So I know I'm now delayed, but please throw in a few of your energizers and drainers into the chat and let us know, what is your best energy window, and what, if you could just wave a magic wand, and you can, and give yourself full permission to slot into it, what linchpin activity would you put there? And share with us in the chat. Let's move on to the design stage. So the design section is all about asking, what are your ideal outcomes, impact, and process? So let's say for a job search, we talked about this in the plant stage yesterday, vision. What is your ideal outcome from a search? What kind of impact do you want to make in your next role? And what ideal process would help you move toward that in a way that is a little bit joyful? Like one of my mantras, let it be easy, let it be fun. Nobody wants, I give the example in the book of someone baking a cake, and there's the person who like toiled and sweated and cried and hated it and goes, here, I made this for you. Or there's someone like my husband who's like whistling, singing, improvising, dancing. And then with pure joy, he goes, here, I made this for you. I can't wait for you to try a bite. So when we think about design and process, it's like, how can you design your approach so that you're not martyring yourself, martyring, not murdering. You're not a martyr to other people, and you're following a process that works for you. And that's going to be different for everyone. So the first idea here for this section, how can you invite a nonlinear breakthrough? Sometimes I think we assume something will be a certain way or it will take a certain amount of time, and then we just hit a wall, and the old ways of working are no longer working. And sometimes there's this moment where you need to just surrender and say, universe, cosmos, whatever you believe in, I need a nonlinear breakthrough here. You can ask for one. What would a nonlinear breakthrough look like? I love this. It's on BuzzFeed. Is an ultimate chain reaction created by mousetraps, and then it starts with one ping pong ball. So sometimes a nonlinear breakthrough is you start taking small actions. There's one ping pong ball, there's one seed you plant. You don't know, you don't see progress yet. But as you continue, there may come a moment that is nonlinear where all of a sudden, boom, this one next step, this one meeting, this one phone call, this one person, you didn't plan it. And yet all the momentum happens from there. So be open to a nonlinear breakthrough. I'll give you another example. Everybody told me I was always single most of my 20s. Everybody told me, oh, it's a numbers game. You have to be on the apps. You have to just pound the pavement. It's about quantity, not quality. I couldn't stand online dating from the apps. I would rather be home reading a book every single time. And I just said, sorry, not for me, but everyone was kind of judging me. And I said, serendipity is my dating app. That's my strategy. Lo and behold, I ended up meeting my husband walking opposite directions down Mott Street in Nolita in Manhattan. I was wearing overalls. He was looking for overalls. He's a painter. Boom. We met. He said, nice overalls. As he passed, I turned and said, thank you. He and his friend turned, where'd you get them? And we started talking. I ended up going to get a burger with them. It's like the whole thing happened from there. And that was 9 years ago this month. Here we are. That was a nonlinear breakthrough, but I had to be willing to have everyone tell me I'm wrong and my approach isn't going to work because I knew that this is what would align with my energy. And maybe for me, I have to be okay with being a little more patient and not just pounding the pavement, but similar with the job search. You may have an approach that isn't just tossing 200 resumes out a day, and that's okay. That's what works for you. And just be ready and open and available to a nonlinear breakthrough. Okay, we're going to move a little quickly because I want to make sure we have time for Q&A. But think about where's something you're particularly stuck. We're approaching it in a linear way. Just isn't working. The shoulds that other people tell you about how you should go about something, it's just not working. What area, if I could wave a magic wand and give you a nonlinear breakthrough, just write it down. What would it be for? The next principle in the design section, time block and bake in batches. This is, it's helpful when it's different for different types of roles. It's very helpful when you have time autonomy, like your time is your own, where maybe you don't want to take phone calls starting at 9 a.m. and ending at 6 a.m. Could you take phone calls only on Tuesdays and Thursdays? What might that look like? That's kind of time blocking, where different days have a different theme. Or baking in batches is instead of submitting resumes every single day at different times, you go on Monday, I submit my resume to all the places that I have indicated for that week. But then I'm not going to worry about it the rest of the week. So you bake in batches. Let's say you're creating content. I know somebody who batches 180 days. She does a 2-day sprint with her team, and they craft 180 days worth of her social posts at one time. I'll send that out with the resources. That's baking in batches. You go, all right, let's say some of you I bet a lot of you have a lot of stories to share and you want to start a newsletter or a Substack. Okay, you could sit down and write when it's supposed to go out, or you could schedule a day, go to your favorite coffee shop and write all 4 for the month in one day. I'm not saying you have to do that or that would work for you, but that's an idea of baking in batches. Instead of making one cookie at a time, you're baking the whole batch. You're baking 20. And then you don't have to go through all the same effort just to produce the one cookie. You can produce 20. So I want to give you some examples, like thinking, how could you approach your week? Let's say this summer. I love setting time free in the summer. Who wants to be indoors? It's too hot, unless you have really good AC. So here's one example. You could batch your focus by the day. So on Mondays, I do admin. This is if you don't have a full-time role yet. On Mondays, I do admin and IRL errands since things are less crowded than on the weekend. Tuesday is job search day. Wednesday is creative. It's just for you. You let yourself roam free. Thursday is networking, social media, inboxes, other people. And then Friday, I mentioned Julia Cameron's book, The Artist's Way. It's so good for rethinking all these inner blueprints. Friday could be an artist date. That's where you go by yourself and you go do something that would make your inner kid really happy. But you can see how you kind of get in the zone. Like, okay, if Thursday is networking and peopling day, you just get in the zone and stay there. You don't have to context switch. So I want to give you permission to set your week up in a way that works for you. And it doesn't have to be every activity every day. Most likely, the world will not fall apart if you don't answer emails on a Wednesday. Like, you don't even need an autoresponder. Like, most things are not going to be urgent. But of course, you could have some system where you check in the morning and afternoon if you are waiting for something time sensitive. Another way to time block and batch could be energy by time of day, which we started talking about with golden hour. So you could say in the morning, that's just for me. This is now, I gave you an example of a morning person. So maybe a night owl would look very different. But you basically say morning is for me. Midday is for other people. Afternoon, exercise. Evening, dinner and wind down, family time, whatever that looks like. Again, if you're a night owl, this might all be flipped around. Because you could either do it, you could do both. You could do within the day and within the week. Okay, the last stage, assign. This is about who will do what by when. Now, if you're self-employed, you might have a part-time VA. Some people I know have a home assistant. They delegate parts of their home life. When you work in a job, you might have a team that you're delegating to. But even when you're sort of in this liminal space in between things, there's probably more that you could assign out than you realize. So the first loving challenge, can you double what you delegate? Can you take some of the stress and pressure off of your shoulders? Are there aspects, again, whether it's part of your search process, part of your professional consulting, or even just household items, how can you free up a little more time and even cognitive energy during this period? Because, we all know sometimes it's not just who's doing what, but who has the browser tabs open. It's not just who does the laundry, but who thinks that the laundry needs to be done. So I would encourage you, because this is a unique time and you are just carrying more mentally, emotionally, spiritually. How can you double what you delegate? In what area could you ask for help? And this is vulnerable. I mentioned on Tuesday, I consider periods like this the great humbling is what I started calling it. And Lovey Ajayi Jones, she did a whole podcast series that I'll link out in the resources where she talked about the crumbling. She's self-employed, and that's what she called her tumultuous period. It is humbling. So think about what are some easy things. Like, I don't do this anymore, but back when I lived in an apartment building where the laundry was in the bottom, at one point I just started to send it out for wash and fold. Like, what am I doing? I'm spending all day doing laundry. And this is a period where I was very busy. Pivot had just come out. I just said, I'm going to spring a little extra money. At that time, I could spring the extra money, have wash and fold, get it delivered. You might have meal kits delivered. There are going to be certain things that just help you get things off your plate that are relatively easy, comfort zone. And then there's stress zone. You're nervous. You don't quite know how to ask. You don't quite know who would help. But oh boy, would it feel good to get this thing off your plate. All right, last principle. I really want to get to questions, and I can even stay a little after if we have a lot. I love this phrase, not my circus, not my monkeys. So there was this, William Onken wrote a book, The 1 Minute Manager Meets the Monkey. And in it, he talked about Jack Warner of Warner Brothers. He told this story. There was this manager on his team who was really overwhelmed. And the story is that all throughout the day, people come into your office and they have a monkey on their back. That's their task, question, project. And they come in and they want to talk to you about it and they leave their monkey in your office. And then they leave and they're scot-free. They feel good. But by the end of the day, you have a troop of monkeys dancing and pooing on your desk. So now you're the one stuck with everybody's monkeys. We could also think about this of like events in the world. We can't care about everything all at once. It's like it's I don't know about you, but it's like too sensitive. My heart hurts as if I tap into everything and everyone else all day long. So sometimes you need to say, not my circus, not my monkeys. When I told my husband the monkey story, we were able to now have a shorthand. Like, I'm giving you this monkey back. I had to learn to say, that's not my monkey. I actually have to give this monkey back to you. Or if someone is controlling, he had an example of someone in his life was taking his monkeys. He needed to claim his monkeys back, like not let this person control too much. So it's just knowing what are the monkeys that you want on your desk and you want to care and feed and take care of, and then which ones are not your monkeys. Not my circus, not your monkey, give it back. So just consider and let us know, is there one thing, it's either a whole project or one small next step that you could delegate or give back, a monkey that you took that's in your care that you didn't even ask for that you could give back? What is not your monkey? Now, sometimes that monkey is worry. I love this line from Hafiz, the poet. Now that your worry has proved such an unlucrative business, why not find a better job? Just give the worry monkey back. Now, one little story before we open up. We talked about time blueprint, and I started feeling guilty by a year, so spring of 2024. So a year ago today, um, well, starting in April of 2024. So I'll tell you what this 1 year anniversary of is in a moment. I felt guilty, like maybe free time doesn't work. Like my biggest contract fell through. I don't know how to pay the mortgage. I had a $50,000 tax bill came out of nowhere and no money to pay it. I started freaking out and I'm like, okay, I'm going to double down. I'm going to do all the work. I'm going to break all my rules. I'm going to do 3 speaking gigs and I'm going to take on coaching clients and do VIP days and I'm going to do it all. And I kind of just felt like, okay, maybe I need to go back to the old ways of working. During that time, I developed an intense throbbing in my neck. It was so painful. I could barely sleep when taking dual action. I started to monitor it. Has it been 6 hours yet? Has it been 6 hours yet? It got worse and worse to the point where on the day of an in-person, my last big in-person event of that stretch, I woke up that morning and I was so nauseous, I couldn't even stand. I called my husband from the hotel room crying, please, I have to finish the slides and I can't even look at the computer. And I had slept on the floor with my legs up on the bed because my neck was hurting so much. And so he helped with the slides. He helped me finish. And somehow, some way, by a miracle, I was able to go present to this group that had flown across the country for me to deliver this pivot session. And when I got home, I forced myself, always a bad idea, to do the 2 final commitments, 1 more speaking engagement and 1 more client. And sure enough, 2 days later, I woke up and half my face was paralyzed, frozen. I couldn't purse my lips. I couldn't drink water. My eye was wonky. And I looked at Michael, my husband, and I said, does something look weird to you? And a look of just horror washed over his face. He thought I was having a stroke. We rushed to the ER. They admitted me right away. And it turns out it was Bell's palsy, which was stress-induced. Probably the neck pain started pressing on a nerve. Now, some people can have Bell's palsy, facial paralysis. Maybe some of you have had it. It could last 10 years. I got really lucky that mine went away with some steroid medication. But that was my body saying, this doesn't work for me. And I've known that about myself. My body has me on a short leash. So you might get those signals too. Like, even if you try to work the way you should, that doesn't mean that it works for you. So to wrap up, as we open it up to questions, I would love for you to share in the chat, what's one big insight from today and one tiny next step that you could take this week? And possibly even what one next step would make the biggest impact. Now I'll put this back If you want the slides from today and the resources that I mentioned, some of the podcast episodes, just go to itsfreetime.com/slides and I'll send those out tomorrow. And I'll put back those 3 questions. Don't worry, I'll put back the 3. I just want to make sure you all have this link, itsfreetime.com/slides. And then just to let you know, the free time book through Labor Day is currently just $1 on Kindle. So you can go to itsfreetime.com/Kindle if you want to get, there's really 27 principles. We went over 6 to 7 of them today, but those are all in the book and it's just $1 right now. So that's itsfreetime.com/Kindle. With that, let's open it up for questions and let me put it back to this slide just so that you can let us know in the chat. And I want you to get ideas from each other because if you share one insight you've had and one next step you're going to take, we can look and see, ooh, that's a good idea. I'm going to do that too. Or what monkey are you giving back? Tell us in the chat so we can do the same. It's really inspiring. And you are all so brilliant and active and engaged and generous. I really noticed that from the first 2 sessions already, that I'm excited. I haven't been reading the chat while talking, but I can't wait to catch up.
Thank you so much, Jenny. I'm going to jump in and try to summarize some of the questions we have. We have 7 questions in
Okay,
our
great.
block. So if anybody has any additional questions, please drop them in. One of the questions that's been coming up in the chat regularly is, oh my gosh, how am I going to get this recording? Don't worry, it is going to be on the website and
Bless my
everyone who
heart.
signed up will get a notification of when it's posted on the website, as well as all the resources that Jenny has mentioned and additional resources that are already up there. One of those is a link to, and several links to coaching resources. So a couple of the questions have focused on, how do I get coaching around both this time of transition and specific career coaching advice? There are a few other organizations that have started to pull together coaching resources. So please, everybody, go check out the website, and all of that coaching that is up there is free, which is amazing and specifically tailored for all of you. As it relates to your amazing presentation, I think 2 of the questions could be parsed down to one, and that is, Jenny, could you speak again or maybe provide some more clarity around boundaries? So setting boundaries, make sure that you actually stick to the schedule that you've created for yourself, and give yourself or protect that golden hour.
Sure. Well, sometimes people hesitate with the whole free time ethos. They think, I'm not a systems person. I don't like systems, or I'm not a structure person. I don't want to structure too much. The mark of a good system is that it's harder not to use it. So, in terms of boundaries, like my Bell's palsy example is a case where I didn't set boundaries and then I paid. It's like your mind writes a check that your body can't cash. So part of it is realizing the pattern of just, oh, I did it again. Like here I am, I've said yes too soon. I think pausing can be really helpful, buying yourself time to really consider. I don't know if any of you have heard of like stress testing, where you can actually stand up, close your eyes. And I like to phrase the question, is it in the highest good? So let's say you get invited somewhere. Is it in the highest good for me to go to XYZ? And your body will naturally lean forward, which is a yes, or will recoil, which is a no. And that can be really interesting for when your mind, sometimes your mind muddles boundaries, but then your body knows. And then there are times where the way you hold the boundaries to remind yourself, I don't have capacity. Yes, I would have loved to do these nice to have things if it were a regular time, but right now I'm whether it's emergency mode or it's just I'm in recharging mode, I'm in self-care mode, like only when you hold those boundaries can you even have a chance to give to yourself and everyone else. So those are some of the things that help me. Terry Cole has a great podcast and book on boundary setting if you need an extra resource for that.
Thank you. Another one of the questions that's coming up is kind of related to boundaries, and it's maybe breaking the boundaries of what we are expecting out of our pivot. 2 of the questions focus, well, really on ego and on knowing when or how to check your ego when it comes to looking at your next step. So one of the questions was basically, How do you handle ego issues if you feel like you have to take a position that is lower than the one that you left? And similarly, how do you know when you should just take a job to take a job so that you've got something to whether it's bring that little bit of money in to pay the bills,
Mhm.
to kind of open up a little bit of that mental space to move forward?
Yeah. I love the question because I think these times can be so shaky as far as identity. So there's ego, we know like too much ego and you're just a jerk. But then sometimes, there is a healthy part of us that has confidence and hope and all the good things. And it can be really hard. These times can really unsettle your identity. I would say, um, just remind yourself the Ruth King quote that I don't know if I shared it on Tuesday, but nothing is personal, permanent, or perfect. It's kind of a Buddhist idea, but any next move, it doesn't have to be perfect and it doesn't have to be permanent. I think it depends on your pivot runway, like how much time you have, how much money you have in the bank, like how tight are your resources? Do you have a second source of income in the household or is it all on you? But there's no shame in taking something now. No one can predict the future. So if that relieves some pressure, by all means. And of course, like you said, there's this ego piece, but you can just say it's not perfect and it's not permanent. I'm going to start here and sometimes that just gets the momentum going and you then have a new vantage point. Like I always say decisions are data. Sometimes you got to just decide and say yes to something imperfect so that you take some pressure off and buy yourself time for, the pivot that you want, the leapfrog move, 2 moves out.
I also love from the Tuesday discussion as well, exactly what you're just talking about in terms of small steps towards your longer term goals. And sometimes taking a job
Mhm.
that seems a little bit beneath us or a step back can still have skill building or experience based opportunities
Mhm.
that ultimately help you move forward. So keeping a focus on how is that particular job going to move forward and what could you potentially pull out of that reduces the ego factor and boosts your
Mhm.
ability to be able to say yes.
And sometimes
Um,
it's who you would meet in the role, or um, you could, if the role is like quote unquote beneath you, maybe you can knock it out of the park. Like there might be some advantages that it takes the pressure off the next thing too.
and building on all these great big feelings, guilt.
Yeah.
How do we navigate the guilt of
Oh,
feeling like you aren't doing
yeah.
enough or that you should be doing something when you're taking time for yourself, perhaps?
Yeah. This was the number one. I've struggled with guilt all my life. Like I'm a recovering people pleaser and I'm always like recovering around it because I always notice myself thinking about what everyone else wants, thinks of me, what they need. There is so much guilt associated with that. One thing is to just remind yourself that, again, when you're in kind of a survival mode, in a sense, there's not even room for guilt because you realize I actually, again, I don't have the capacity to even entertain that idea right now. So that helps me. Like so I mentioned this is the 1 year anniversary of me joining the SPOFIS. That was Equinox. As from the ER, my husband said, this is unacceptable. We have to change how we do things. We have to take care of you and your health. He kind of had a wake up, as did I. And I had always rejected joining an expensive gym. But I also can't afford to go to the ER from stress. Like that's not going to work either. In joining Equinox, we had this idea to stack my time. So I would go, I might do a little email or writing beforehand. I might do a workout. Then I can do the recharging R&R, sauna, steam room. Then I can answer some emails before I leave. I could create a whole stack. That's why we joke and call it the Spoffus. And this is now 1 year ago today that I joined. And I have to say, it was the most life-giving decision that I made. And I had a lot of guilt. Like, should I be working out in the middle of the day? But then I realized I need to do this for my health, for my career, for my business, for my family, for everything. It doesn't solve every other problem instantaneously, but I have a much better chance of solving it when I'm healthy and vibrant and I have my best energy than when I don't. So I think remind yourself when the guilt pops up, what is the what is it for? And maybe that can help assuage it a little bit. And so I saw someone asked a question about bouncing back mentally and physically. I think the physical movement just pick what gives you energy. It could be dancing, swimming, biking, walking, hiking. I mean, find the thing that works for you. But I find that during this time, these last 5 years as a breadwinner, as a business owner, sometimes I wake up and my anxiety is so thick. Like I wake up to a cloud of dread. And the only way that I have a hope of like getting back to neutral is to move my body or do the R&R side of things. So I would just say you have full permission to take care of yourself right now and forever. Like maybe you set up some habits and practices during this time that really serve you no matter what you do next.
And you're 100% right. Life intervenes, though lots of a couple of questions too about how to
Yeah.
navigate the golden hour and just staying on track with life. Because we are going beyond time, I'm going to just say,
Yeah.
everybody, please make sure you tap into these great coaching resources that are on the website and are offered through other organizations to help you with that. Also saw in the chat that in terms of accountability and idea generation and helping each other move forward, reciprocity rings have been a great tool that
Oh, yeah.
people have been using and that we are hoping to integrate into this programming moving forward. So be on the lookout for those things. Jenny, any final thoughts to wrap up today and to help us be focused on moving forward, how we can continue to help each other and to help ourselves navigate
Mm.
this incredible time?
Well, speaking of reciprocity, I love setting up what I call 30/30s. So if you're feeling self-conscious to just pick someone else's brain or ask for time, I love suggesting a 30/30 or a 20/20. Like I'll help you brainstorm something for 20 minutes and then I'm happy to return the favor or and then we can switch. So those work really well. Um, in parting, I would just say question everything, like question your assumptions. I know that job searching can be one of the most frustrating activities because it's so opaque and uncertain and it can take time. For you, for some of you, it might be really fast, and others, it might take time. That has nothing to do with you. It's just the unique timing of the universe at this moment. And so you don't have to exhaust yourself like I said, feeling like you have to search all day, every day. I want to give you permission. Like, what would it look like if you did your job search 2 days a week and you did something creative or fulfilling, or you started experimenting with taking on clients on a third day of the week? Like, play around with this a little bit because in doing that, in piloting not just what you're doing, but when, you might have some real breakthroughs and they're not going to come. It's like there's a book, the what got you here won't get you there. You don't have to work in the time blueprint that you grew up with or that you were used to, and just don't assume, "Oh, well, if I work fewer hours, then I'll earn less or less will happen or bad things will follow." That's the story we've been told, but is that true? So that's a Byron Katie question that I'll leave you with. Is that true? And you can go to thework.com. She has a whole worksheet to work through. But every time you feel bad, guilt, all the things, the emotions that we talked about coming up, is that true? And is there a nonlinear breakthrough available or a different way to think about it? And why not test it out and see?
Thank you so much. So Jenny joined us for these first two
Yeah.
sessions of our 14-part series to help lay the really strong foundation, ask the big questions that we need to ask in order to start to set our sights on what's going to be coming next and how to structure our time to start getting there. The next bit of our series is going to be starting to shift over to the really tactical components of the job search, and that's why I purposely didn't answer some of the questions that were in the Q&A about interviewing skills and about specific job search topics, because we are coming to that. Next Tuesday, July 1st, we're going to be joined by Steve Dalton, who's the author of The 2-Hour Job Search and also The Job Closer. He's going to start us off on those tactical tips, tools, tricks, resources to really help each and every one of you start laying out a concrete plan on how to go after, in a really efficient and effective way, the things that are in alignment or as close to alignment as possible to the thing that you want to pursue next. So please join us on Tuesday, 12 o'clock noon Eastern Standard Time. Be on the lookout for the recording for this session and for Tuesday's session on our website, as well as through email if you all have joined our mailing list. with of that, have a wonderful rest of your day, Jenny. Thank you again for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you all so much for your wonderful comments in the chat. Thank you for being here and spending some of your free time with us. Thank you, Laura and the Georgetown team and Rockefeller Foundation. It's truly an honor to be here with all of you. Thank you again.